taking a minute.
Welcome back to the On Deck Circle podcast. I am one of your hosts, Nick Zaniboni. I'm with my co-host, Jason. Jason, how are you on this fine Wednesday evening?
What is up, Nick? We are having a heat wave here. It is almost 45 degrees in the middle, almost at the end of January. So maybe some warm weather's coming your way. I'm doing good. Spring training's 2 weeks away.
Yep.
Baseball season is among us.
I believe I saw the truck arrived at Fenway Park today, so I am fully ready for this baseball season. And that brings me into my cold open question of the week, Jason. Jason, I know that New Year's Day has come and gone. We are now in February, tomorrow, actually. I want to know what your fantasy baseball New Year's resolution is going into this season. Ready, set, go. Jason, before you answer, there is this one thing I do need to add about that intro.
Okay.
One, it surprised me again because I am incredibly talented, and I'm like, holy shit, that is very good. But the name of the song is called Punk in Donuts. So it's punkin'. So like Dunkin' Donuts, but with punk music. So Punkin' Donuts. And I thought that was only fitting for somebody that is here on a Boston Dunkin', Punkin'. I thought it was great. So Jason, tell me what your resolution is, buddy.
First of all, we have Dunkin' Donuts here in Chicago. But when I went and visited Boston recently, about last year, I think, I was shocked to find out that Dunkin' Donuts is a Boston, that's where it started from, right? Like on the East Coast over there.
You know that?
No, I was just like, oh, it's just like another coffee stand.
That you're here, whenever that is, I will bring you to the first Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh my God!
It is up the street from my grandpa's house, who is a former guest of this podcast.
Yes, he was.
But yeah, man. What is awful is I am reached the point where I refuse to drink Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and I'm just a Starbucks guy.
So now I
moved on up to that.
Now I definitely have a mission to hit because I just visited the country's first Starbucks last October in Seattle. Yeah. So now I need to go back to Boston and hit up the first Dunkin' Donuts, and then I'll have my coffee complete.
It's next to a Popeyes, so we can get some Popeyes after.
Ooh, Popeyes, way better than KFC. Yes. My fantasy baseball resolution, right? That's what you asked me. New Year's resolution. Shit, man, I don't know.
Would you like me to go first? Because I do have mine.
I was gonna go to something super basic. I feel like I say this every year is to be in less leagues. To downsize the amount of leagues I'm in, or I should rephrase that. I need to be in more. So I started recently doing draft and holds for football, best ball drafts, and I'm very, very keen on this idea because the more leagues you're in, the harder it is to pay attention to some of these. So what better way to not have to worry about it than just get in draft and holds? You still get to do your favorite part. Most people's favorite part is the draft, right? So you get to look at the draft, and then you get rid of all the nuances of having to set a lineup every week or every day. So that's going to be my resolution. Not downsize, but if I'm going to get in more leagues, make it be draft and holds.
Are there like waivers and stuff in those leagues?
Depends. Most of them, no.
You can like customize it to that.
Well, like Radslam, like there was 2 free agent periods throughout the year, which I'm fine with. That's good. But I weekly fab and all that stuff, no. I'm good on that. Like just give me the least amount of in-season work. I'm ashamed to even say how many leagues I'm in, and it's probably not that much compared to some, but when you're starting to get close to double digits, it might be time to.
Are you over 4, Jason?
I am over 4 leagues. Yes, I am, and I believe 7 leagues.
is that counting like TGFBI and stuff or no? Because I don't count those. Those are
no. These are so I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm in 3 dynasty leagues, and then 4 redrafts. So that I'm probably double digits by the time you add in Raz Slam and add in TGFBI.
Wow,
Yeah. So
that's crazy.
my resolution is if I'm going to join my leagues, it's going to be draft and hold.
Okay,
What's yours?
To not panic by like May. Give me till May.
Okay.
I am such a prisoner of the moment, especially in fantasy baseball, just because I'm like, oh, this guy's struggling. That means he sucks. And also, oh, this guy's awesome. He's going to be great the whole season. So I need to really just get to June. Give me till June 1st before I start to panic about my teams, before I start to really like tinker and move big pieces. I'm all about the marginal moves, the ones like within like the footnotes of your team, because that's really how you win, is by those trades that you make from the bottom part of your roster that maybe just steps up a little bit. So that's my big one. I think I wanted last year, me and you both did a good job at the TGFBI waivers. By good, I mean we were on it. So
yeah.
I want the both of us again to hold each other accountable, unless we're in the same league.
Sure.
But just be that extra voice, being like, hey, don't forget it's Sunday. Waivers is gonna run tonight. Just because 2 years ago I did so bad, and I think just being able to, if you're active in those leagues, that's how you do better. And I do also want to note, I am sticking with my no pitcher until the 10th round again for both Nerf and TJFBI.
Yeah, I forgot that was I was going to bring that up to you because I feel like we both had our best finishes in TGFBI this year. At least mine. I don't know about yours, but mine I was within the top 100. So I mean that's a pretty big feat when you're talking about like 500 or 600 people. But then yes, the no pitchers. I feel like more than ever, starting pitching is pretty deep, and there's not a lot of. I feel like the top tier is getting smaller, and there's the blurb, like the blob of pitchers between like 12 and 50, or maybe even more at this point. Like the blob in the middle is getting bigger, which kind of feeds into your no pitcher, almost like the no running back of football.
I think I went in on this like is at the perfect time. And as far as I know, I'm the only guy around that was doing it last year. I think we're going to see more people adopt this strategy. And what the funny thing is these people have no idea who the hell I am. But I am going to be the one that both me and you will know. And
yeah.
Maybe some of the Nerf guys will know too, just because I was adamant at that Jake and Joe's when I had my salmon Caesar salad.
Yeah, and shout out Jake and Joe's.
Pitchers until round 10.
You know what? It's funny because like I remember you were talking about this last year, and I was listening to Pitcher List, Nick Pollock of Pitcher List, talk about how deep the pitching crop is this year. And yeah, it kind of just goes back to what I was just saying, like that blob in between like 12 and 50 or 12 and 60 starting pitchers, it's growing every year where that tier, I guess, or that blob is bigger and bigger. The top tier is getting smaller with a lot of these guys phasing out, like, Verlander, Kershaw, and all these guys are getting up to the edge of their career. Obviously, you got young guys coming up like Strider and things like that, but I think we might be onto something, or you might be on something here with the. We'll try it again this year. I might even have to dive into the strategy as well.
In one of your 15 leagues.
Well, no, in TGFBI.
Yeah. Also, Jason, I want to go back to last week's cold open question of the week, which was what wrestler you thought would win the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble has since come and gone. And I can't believe I forgot this, because the Royal Rumble actually has something to do with baseball. And there's a new WWE superstar named Jade Cargill. Have you heard of her at all?
No, I thought you were telling me I thought that was a guy's name.
No, she's an absolute monster, built like a shit brick house, I think my grandfather would say, to bring him up.
Let me
again.
give it a quick Google. What's the name again?
Jade, Jade, Card
Yep.
Gill. Card Gill. Her husband, Brandon Phillips.
Oh, really? That dude?
Yes, he was at the Royal Rumble.
That dude's wife is the next WWE superstar?
She is so good. So just like, do you remember China?
Yeah.
So she's China, but like without steroids.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was you were correlating your Royal Rumble question to baseball. I see.
Oh yeah, just because Brandon Phillips was there.
Gotcha. All right, let's get into some of this stuff. First, let's get into the business aspect. Get the business stuff out of the way. Do you want to get access to the most accurate fantasy baseball rankings according to Fantasy Pros? I know I do. Draft season's right around the corner. You can also get access to our draft cheat sheet, which was also super helpful for our TGFBI last year. I don't know if you used it, but I did. It's like a little thing you can use on the fly as you're drafting. You kind of like delete or remove the players that are being drafted from the cheat sheet, and it helps bring up guys that are going to be at value at where you pick next, where you can find values in Roto leagues more specifically, but you also have it set up for all the different platforms. You can also get access to DFS, betting projections, custom league advice on our Discord, and many more by signing for an all-access membership today at fantasysixpack.net/plans. And right now, if you use promo code F6PMLB24, you can get 15% off that membership right now. I don't know what you're still here doing, but you should go sign up right now.
Do we need to pay for that, Jason, or is it free for us?
The invoice is in the mail.
So, but if it is so useful, could I pay for it just to thank the company?
Thank Joe. Yeah, and thanks. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah. Because I believe I drafted Luis Arias because of that cheat sheet last season.
And how'd that go?
Handedly got me top average, I think.
I will say that was one of the I think we both were like, I know I was like top in my league. Top like 50 in batting average, I think, for FTGFBI last year. Yep. Thanks to the cheat sheet.
Yes.
All right, well, there was a little bit of news since last week. Colt Keith, the Tigers, one of their top prospects, signs an extension, basically making him the Detroit Tigers opening day second baseman. Right now, Fangraphs has him listed batting at not the bottom of the order, but right in the middle of the order, sixth. Again, this is all projections. But right now they have him projected for 16 home runs, 257 average. But that I think is some big news because we're also seeing, right, we saw the Brewers, someone we're going to talk about here later on, Jackson Chourio signed an extension. We're now seeing teams kind of, go out and sign their top prospects and try to get that just extra year of eligibility.
Yep.
So that's kind of good to see. There was, if you look at his numbers last year, I think he had like a 932 OPS between AA and AAA, 27 home runs, 101 RBIs. This is all coming from a second base. We didn't really talk about him last week because he's more. Well, we did. He's second base and third base. So we did both last week. So we did talk about him a little bit last week, and then sure enough, here he is being extended and put on the opening day roster. So I think it's good news for not just him but baseball because we've seen more and more teams starting to do this now, and that rule change that they made was like maybe 2 years ago now.
For the rookie of the year, they get a comp pick at the end. I totally agree. But Jason, I'm gonna just throw out some names at you, okay?
Okay.
John Singleton, Evan White, Scott Kingery, Eloy Jimenez, Lou Bob, and Jackson Chourio. Those are the guys that have been signed before their debut. There might be more, but this is just the 6 that I compiled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this works. I think
you're leaving one off. Wasn't Julio Rodriguez?
I don't know. Unless they left some off the list that I looked at. You might be right, but no. Yeah. So go ahead and figure out if he did. But in general, even if I'll give you that, that's still like 1.5 that have hit. And Julio Rodriguez was like an elite player. This Colt Keith is like a top 50 prospect, right? Ish, maybe 25,
Right.
depending on the list. So between 25 and 50. He's not that like planet player. He's like that on the edge of your roster player, like as like an actual like dynasty asset. Maybe not edge, but like Scott Kingery is a good comp. And Scott Kingery was like, I thought he was going to be just like a plug and play, like Dustin Pedroia without the MVP, like good player. But Scott Kingery screwed me. So now I'm kind of just like, this is kind of why I don't believe in second base prospects either, just because Scott Kingery screwed me. And apparently, Evan White, John Singleton, both first base prospects, also could not do it in the big leagues. So
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Colt, but I don't know if I don't know
Yeah.
what expectations are. We'll have to have Dave on at some point just so I can ask him, like, what are you looking for here? If you're not looking for like a like perfect second baseman, then sure, this is fine. But I don't love buying out the years. I do love like if the Red Sox extended like Tristan Casas, a player that played a season, and then more of like a known quantity thing. But we'll see.
Yeah. No. I think also, again, we'll talk about here in a little bit, but Jackson Churio, he's signed an extension this offseason too. He's about ready to make the opening day roster for the Brewers. But yeah, I think you're putting a lot of emphasis on hope and that he does. These guys do come up and perform, because if not, you're basically wasting. I forgot what it was. Do they have to win, or do they have to be like top 3 for rookie of the year to get that extra year of eligibility? I can't remember. I think they have to win, right? Or I'd have to look that up, but I can't remember. I forgot exactly what the rule is.
It's win,
and then but if they're top 3, they get something too, or some. I forgot what it was, but there's definitely some incentives to bring them up, and we're seeing some teams do it. But yeah, I mean, Lou Bob, he was the one that's sent him too long, and he panned out. He was one of the ones that did. So it's like maybe we'll call a 50-50 chance of these guys actually outperforming their extensions before they make their debut. Chad's chiming in here. He's here for the Cade, Greg Maddux Jr. Horton hype. We're all here for that as well. Especially, as you can see in my background, I'm here for all that. But that was the news right there. So that would be big news for Dynasty players. Obviously some people probably had him on the team obviously already, but for redraft players, looking for a late round flyer on second base, get Colt Keith, because right now for redraft players, I'm sure he's going. I don't know what his ADP is right now, but even with the news breaking, I'm sure it's probably outside the top 200. So maybe outside the top 250.
We'll see.
So last week we did catcher, first, second, third. Now let's get into the positions that everybody's always intrigued with: shortstop, outfield, pitcher. We'll stay in the infield first, go on the dirt, and go shortstop first. Go through the list here real quick. I feel like these names are people that are familiar with, right? So it's obviously starting off with Jackson Holliday, Baltimore; Jordan Lawler, Arizona; Jackson Merrill, San Diego; Adele Amador, someone we talked about last week on second base. There's going to be a lot of combo guys, right? Like some of these guys, you don't know where they're going to fit. They play both, second, short. But Marcelo Mayer, your boy; Sebastian Walcott, number 6 in Texas; Colson Montgomery for the White Sox; Jet Williams for the Mets; Matt Shaw, somebody we talked about last week in the second base preview as well. And then Carson Williams for Tampa Bay. Obviously, Jackson Holliday, the biggest name on not only on this list, but in all of baseball. He's basically the top prospect in all of baseball right now. So he is obviously the highest name in this list. I know we got 2 of our guys here, Matt Shaw. We talked about last week, Matt Shaw, but Marcelo Mayer. Anything you want to talk about Marcelo Mayer at all?
Do you want to know something that's very funny? I don't.
Okay.
I'm worried about him. I'm just kidding. He battled a shoulder injury last season, and I think this year is the I don't want to say make or break because that's not fair to any 21-year-old. Maybe he might even be fucking 20 at this point. But I think this is the year we see if he's gonna be like a top prospect or just like an above average player, which is fine. He could be an above average player and he could contribute to the team in the next window, whenever the hell that happens.
Yeah.
But or this year we could see him really burst back on the scene into that guy that we drafted on draft day when we were like, oh my God, Mayer fell this far. Unless this is the reason Mayer fell far, because people didn't truly believe in what we saw. I do really think that he's going to be a far better baseball player than he is a fantasy baseball player. So
Yep.
that's something to always think about. A lot of these, but like a lot of these guys, I feel like are far, like I can see Sebastian. I understand that Walcott is one behind him, but he could outperform him by like 3 times, or he could be out of the league in 3 years. I think the upside for Mayer fantasy wise is not like huge, but he might just be like a great baseball player and not a great fantasy baseball player.
Mm-hmm. One of the things too is, not to get too deep in on Jackson Holliday, number overall prospect, but still only 20 years old. I know drafted last year, everyone was like, take Drew Jones. Baltimore's like, no, we're taking Jackson Holliday, and they're proving everyone wrong that they were right in taking Jackson Holliday. However, one of the things that's been left to desire, again, he's only 20, so you can't really, take this too much. But the power numbers I don't think are going to be there for Jackson Holliday, which you can live with at shortstop. However, there's also a lot of guys at shortstop position that you can have that will contribute power. So again, it's hard to project the power for a 20-year-old, but I can't imagine him being more than like a 15 home run guy a season at the most. I think even getting to like double digits will be a little bit of a task for him. Yeah, but everything else with him, 4-tool player, get on base at a ton. It's going to have speed, going to hit for a high average. Probably going to bat at the top of that lineup for Baltimore. So it's going to have some runs. Going to be behind, in front of all those big hitters that they got in that Baltimore lineup. So obviously, if there's one knock on Jackson Holliday, is just the power output that he's going to have.
So the way I see it, it's kind of just Seager.
Chad chimes in saying he wants to have Jace Jung at second base in Detroit too. I'm a huge Jace Jung. I'm a Jace Jung and a Josh Jung fan. Both of those guys I think are super undervalued. But I agree with Chad. One thing I'd like to see, we'll see what Cole Keith does here, because let's not forget, Cole Keith was also a 5th-round pick in the MLB draft, and it was also the year of the COVID draft where there was only 5 rounds. So,
he was a last-round pick.
Yeah, he was a last-round pick exactly. So, I think of these lists, I think one of the guys that might, outperform their ranking right now too is Colston Montgomery of the White Sox.
Yeah.
He's good. The only thing that worried me a little bit about him is White Sox have never been a huge hitting developmental team. A lot of the guys that they bring up just don't really develop at the rate that they should be. So a little bit of hesitation on him, but I think at 7 is, could probably bump him up a little bit more. Jackson Merrill I really like a lot. That's the shortstop list. Again, a lot of these guys, everyone's, these are all the names that everyone's heard of. Everyone's probably owned these guys except for a few of them that are not obviously first-year player draft eligible. So let's jump over here now to the outfielders. This one's guy we just talked about here, Jackson Chourio of Milwaukee. Again, we just talked about it here at the top of the hour. Signed an extension this offseason. He'll be starting as Milwaukee's center fielder, which, not to go much from a tangent, but that's a great young outfield that they're building up there in Milwaukee with Chourio, Garrett Mitchell, Sal Frelick. They're going to have quite the outfield there for a couple years to come. But anyways, Evan Carter at 2, Dylan Cruz from Washington, Wyatt Langford for Texas, James Wood at number 5, 6 PCA Pete Crow Armstrong, number 7 Roman Anthony, number 8 Colton Cowser, 9 Max Clark, 10 Walter Jenkins. I think to me, two things that stick out on this list. One, there's 3 first-year player draft eligible players on this list in Dylan Cruz, Wyatt Langford, and Walter Jenkins, all being in this year's first-year player draft, which
and
is
Max Clark. 4.
and Max Clark. Yeah, you're right. Right, good call. 4 of the 10, 40% of the top 10 outfield prospects aren't even on the team yet, unless you've had your draft already, which most people probably have not. So that was really shocking. And then another thing that was shocking to me too was Washington and Texas having 2 of the top 5. James Wood taking a little bit of a step back last year. Again, super young and raw, which obviously kind of pushes him down a little bit. Where guys like Carter and Langford are, college bats coming into the draft this year. Evan Carter, I'm surprised he was even still considered a prospect, but I believe because a lot of it was postseason play. So that's probably why he's still considered.
That wouldn't count for the.
I believe, yeah. I'm not a huge. I don't know all the MLB rules, but MLB rules are really weird too because for fantasy purposes, like a lot of leagues I'm in order to exhaust your minor league eligibility, it's usually like at least a couple hundred at bats, or at least 100. Where like MLB, I think it's like 50 at bats. So to me, he's still a prospect. Because again, I don't think postseason counts as towards your eligibility. I mean, if it did, he only had, what do you have here? 75 plate appearances last year. Yeah. So I bet you MLB has it at like 100 or something. But yeah, he had a huge year at the end of the year last year, as well as a good postseason and World Series for Texas. So he's definitely up the top of that list. If you had to pick one? No, I did not. I did not. I didn't do any. The only one I did so far is on these 3 is pitchers.
Okay.
But of the 2 college bats, we're not even going to include the bottom 2. Just Wyatt Langford and Dylan Cruz. If you have, let's say, the 1-1 or the 1-2, which of these outfielders are you taking this year?
I'd pick Wyatt Langford over anybody on. I'd put him at 1 ahead of Jackson Torino, if we're being completely honest. Sure. I love Wyatt Langford. I think he's the best college bat that we've seen as long as I've been like playing Dynasty baseball. I'm trying to think of other bats that I've like really loved, but I can see him actually like contributing to the Rangers by the playoffs, like legitimately playing like meaningful games for that team by even like July.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I bet you after the, playing time manipulation period, so what's that, like the end of April, he may even be up there as soon as May.
He might even break camp, Jason. Like
this is true too. The only problem that they have right now is Texas is pretty deep in the outfield. But I agree. He could break camp because just what he even did last year. He went all the way through all 3 levels and even ended at AAA last year and just never once missed a beat. I mean, if you look at his, again, small sample size, but it's like every stop he made from complex to AAA just never hit below like 330. Some stops, like I have a small sample size, over 380. It's just like I think he's just ready for the major leagues. Like I don't know what else more you need to see from him at the minor league level. Wyatt Langford's that dude. I think of anybody on this, I think that you made a good point. He's who you want of all of these players.
Yeah, he's the only guy that to me rivals Jackson Holiday as like the overall 1 prospect. But like it's just, so I'm looking at Roto Champs like projected lineup, and it has him in it, which I understand it's just a projection. But like I can see them just like that extra pick at the end of the first means so much now, especially to a team that like projects as like a playoff like World Series team, just to have that extra one at the end. So I don't know, man. I'm I like Wyatt Langford too much for my own good, because I would probably like overpay to like the nth degree.
It's kind of crazy that the defending World Series champs
Got the
like
best bat in the draft at number.
yeah, because like just the way that the MLB draft works versus like it's in season and it's before like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like you're basically it's like it's based off the prior year, obviously, so it's like a little bit weird, but it's just weird. You don't really see that very often when the defending World Series champ. Now, don't get me wrong, they were not. They were kind of a long shot to win the World Series, so for them to do it was awesome. But yeah, for them to get Wyatt Langford, and yeah, he's a non-roster invitee to spring training this year. So yeah, you're right. There's probably a good chance. Yeah, even Roster Resource has him listed as their starting DH.
Yeah,
It'll probably split time between him and Adolis. We'll split time at DH, but yeah,
I feel like I would just move Adolis to DH. But I don't know why it's deep defense, but like in general.
Yeah, it's crazy. So like they have Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford. Evan Carter will be on the team start the year, and Wyatt Langford will probably most likely if not be on it. There could just be a playing time or an eligibility manipulation for him
for sure.
Otherwise than that, outfield's always super deep. There's guys that it's hard to even limit it to 10 because there's guys that are top 25 outfield prospects that could outperform some of the guys. Like it's hard to say. You know what I mean?
Yeah, love all these names really. Outfield prospects are my kryptonite, man. I love them all.
Yeah, I know. Same. Another from one deep position to another, probably the deepest position, but no one's favorite. We're talking about 10 snaps here, right? Top 10 pitching prospects. Go ahead and run through the list here. We have Paul Skeens 1, Andrew Painter 2, Ricky Tiedemann 3, Cade Horton, or should I say Chad? It says Cade, Greg Maddox Jr. Horton, Jackson Jobe 5, Jacob Mizorowski 6, Dylan Lesko 7, Hurston Waldrop 8, Noah Schultz 9, and Jackson Ferris 10. At one point when I was writing this list, right before I made this list, Jackson Ferris, I almost had 2 Cubs in the top 10.
That's tough.
That Jackson Ferris deal may come back to haunt the Cubs because if it's one thing that they lack right now, and that's starting pitchers with velocity, and that's exactly what Jackson Ferris was. But I digress. This one's always difficult. Like again, there's 10 snap, right? There's no such thing as a pitching prospect. But Jackson Jobe is obviously a very debated name right now. I have him as 5. He still needs to show me a little bit more to move him up that list, right? Like Paul Skeens. Everyone wants to push Painter down because he got hurt. I mean, you can't fault him. I mean, I feel like just a year ago, he was the number 1 pitching prospect and everyone couldn't get enough of him. Now all of a sudden everyone's like on to the next, but that's not me. I still think even though he's going to be out most of the season with injury, he's still the number 2 pitching prospect behind Paul Skeens. But Jackson Jobe, still really young, started to turn a corner last year. 2023 was a huge year for Jackson Jobe. Everyone was like, what was Detroit doing when they took him so high in the draft? And now he's kind of proving people why they took him that high. But Ricky Tiedemann, my man, this is a guy that everyone's in love with. Probably makes his debut this year for Toronto. They're pretty light in the pitching department. But of all these names, my favorite on the list, from probably the main reason being he's on Atlanta, and that's Hurston Waldrop. I know we've talked about him maybe last week or 2 weeks ago. 1, he was dominant at Florida, and then 2, you go to an organization like Atlanta where they just continually churn out these pitching prospects, top of the rotation pitching prospects. I am all in on Hurston Waldrop. Of anybody on this outside the top 5, because the top 5 obviously those are pretty much can't miss prospects. Hurston Waldrop.
Always miss on a pitcher, Jason.
This is true. This is very. I feel like Paul Skeens might be one of those guys that you can't miss on. Yes. It's like the next coming of Garrett Cole, so he'll probably be on Pittsburgh for like 2 seasons.
His worst case is like an SP3, and that's just like perfect.
Right. I mean, he's probably going to follow the projections of a former Pittsburgh Pirate and Garrett Cole, and probably be really dominant for Pittsburgh for like 2 years, 3 years, and then they'll trade him off. But that's just what they do. But yeah, Hurston Waldrep is. I give me all the shares of Hurston Waldrep. I'm fully in on him this year.
Yeah, I refrain from pitching prospects, as we know. I will say a pitching prospect that I have fallen in love with this offseason, not on the list here. Also, a pitcher for the Yankees,
Whoa.
Mr. Chase Hampton.
Okay.
Big fan. I literally saw like one tweet about him because this is how I do all of my analysis in my offseason. I see a tweet about someone and I was like, okay, I'll just like look into him. Then I did. And I said, oh, wow. I'm very into Chase Hampton. This coming, I don't know if he'll debut this year, but I think maybe next year we might be talking more about Chase Hampton. I just wanted to get his name on canon, I think they say in the biz.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, again, both outfield and again, pitching's probably deeper than outfield because there's just so many of them. There's no such thing as a pitching prospect. Pitching prospects one bad year and they're dropped way down the lists. It's kind of crazy, but I think the top 5 are pretty much as close as you can come to can't miss.
Yeah.
But then there's even guys like Jacob Mizorowski, like dude's a strikeout machine. Throws high velocity. Pretty much the reason why they're probably trying to get rid of the Corbin Burns, which also didn't you? I think like last season you were like, I guarantee you they're gonna try and trade him because he didn't want to. Like it was like you were saying that they were gonna like he was gonna like
he was tanking his value.
Yeah,
so they would trade him.
Yeah,
yes, he's still on the team.
Still on the team, but
close to right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, that wraps up our top 10 prospect previews for this 2024 offseason. Like I said, spring training is kicking off here in about 2 weeks. First year player draft's about to kick off in a couple weeks, so we're going to get in some of these topics here a little bit coming up here, but that's going to do it for this week on Deck Circle.
Sweet.
Anything else before we leave?
Let me think here.
I thought maybe you had something off the top of your head.
No, nothing.
All right. See you, man.